lighted intersections, those kinds of things, because of the way it's applied. And it was really written for much more urbanized areas. And I've heard certain accountings from people that said, well, it was really a target against rural counties and to try to minimize the growth in rural counties and keep whatever growth happens constrained to areas that have higher density populations close to transit, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know if that's true or not, but it wouldn't surprise me if that was part of the motivation of some of the people in the state legislature. So the Planning Commission has got to wade through that, decide what they're going to do, and then ultimately come to the Board of Supervisors. There are other projects similarly that are subject to VMT. You're going to talk about Montana de Oro, and I've got to believe that has the same prescription. And I think it's important to note that in El Dorado County, it's kind of a double impact relative to traffic and circulation, because our general plan and the Measure Y provisions requires us to do level of service analysis on roadways when you look at the impacts associated with development. Now, with the state changing to VMT, there has to be an analysis consistent with that to satisfy CEQA, but that doesn't relieve the county's requirement to do level of service analysis. So we're going to have to do parallel analysis, and the one that's really going to drive CEQA certification is going to be VMT. So again, a lot of things changing, not all for the good, in my opinion. It's more constraints. And ultimately, I hope it doesn't result in the state just deciding they're going to take over control of all housing, including high density housing and affordable housing and all those things within rural counties. But remains to be seen how that plays out. So those have been the two areas primary, I think, to the activities going on. And with that, I'll just open it up to anybody has a question on something related to those two items or something else. I'd be happy to try to answer it.
Yeah, and if you don't have a raise your hand button in your Zoom session, just go ahead, say your name, and then ask your question. So any questions for Supervisor Heidel?
Hi, John Rassler. I have a question, John. Will the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission be making approval of certain projects, even though the vast majority of residents cannot attend any meeting to voice their concerns?
That's going to be an individual decision by either the Planning Commission or Board of Supervisors. I don't know how the Planning Commission is going to weigh in on that. I do know we've had discussions at the Board of Supervisors level with respect to getting back to using the county board chambers. We have an in-house policy consistent with what the governor requires for reopening things that limits the participation within the board chambers to 23 people. So that's not a big audience, but we do recognize that we could possibly tie in the Planning Commission hearing room as well as the Board of Supervisors, accommodate more people. A number of people have indicated an interest in continuing with the Zoom access, where you don't have to drive up to Placerville and sit in a chair and comment. You can actually have the interaction of doing it via Zoom, where in the past we were live streaming our meetings so you could hear and see things going on, but you couldn't comment if you weren't physically present or if you hadn't previously submitted a letter to the clerk of the board. So it's a TBD, but the best guess I've heard is that the board chambers will probably not be reopened till probably the early part of August. So it's a see as you go. So I don't know. I can't tell you what the whole board is thinking about. We haven't discussed it in detail, but it is a precarious type of situation. You want public comment. You want people to feel like they've had an opportunity, an active voice in participating in these things. And just using Zoom doesn't satisfy most people. I know it's convenient for some people. If you're working, you don't have to take time off from work. You can get on your Zoom, whatever device you're using, go into Zoom and make your comments and then bow out. But yeah, it's going to be a see as you go what the decisions are made. So nothing definitive at this point.
All right. I'm glad that they're just thinking about it and discussing it.
And I will chime in that I know a lot of people have observed that there's a lot of people maybe not participating, but watching the Zoom board meetings, just because that's what they're doing with their job. So they have Zoom accessibility. They're getting more familiar with it, and I believe that actually the virtual attendance has been increasing for several of the meetings. So that's not a
Yes, it
bad
has.
thing. But for the people who can't do that, if you're in a very rural area, you don't have the bandwidth. You can still dial in, but yeah, it's a challenge. Okay. Are there any other
there's
questions?
limitations of Zoom, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Are there any other questions for Supervisor Heidel?
I just wanted to state I'm here. Sorry to be a little late.
I see you. That would be Planning Commissioner and Chair John Vigna. Thank you, John.
Okay.
Okay. With that,
So maybe I get off to Vanya to talk about what's going on, what the plan is for the Planning Commission, because I haven't had an update today.
Yeah, I don't have any updates. You know, I'm going to probably reach out to Chairman Veerkamp and probably check in with him and see if he's got any more info. But, you know, more than likely, we'll be following the direction of what the board takes. I mean, I can't wait to get back to our chambers at the Planning Commission, but, you know, we want to be sensitive to, the current situation we're in stuff. So, you know, we'll probably follow lock, stock, and barrel with the Board of Supervisors as it relates to that.
okay. Well then, thank you, Supervisor Heidel. And I guess we'll move ahead in our, oops, trying to get back here. We're going to move ahead and I'm changing my view so I can see what's going on here. I'm going to share this screen one more time. If I can get back to it, sorry. There you go. So moving ahead, our project and APAC matters on this agenda tonight. The first thing on our agenda, it's an update on the Montana de El Dorado Phase 2, the draft environmental impact report, which was released, I believe, the last weekend of May, but technically June 1st. This project, the public comment period on the draft environmental impact report extends from June 1st through July 13th. It's a 45-day public comment period. So to basically define this very quickly, it's a further development of the Montana de El Dorado Commercial and Retail Center. It's comprised of a retail element, which is 8 buildings, about 74,000 square feet of retail space. So in those retail spaces, the buildings would be from 3,200 square feet to 30,000 square feet, with individual suites, you know, from 1,000 square feet up to 30,000 for that big building. There's also a 63,000 square foot hotel proposed for this. I believe it's a 99 to a 100 room hotel. One of the features of the project is an amphitheater. There's an office element where there's 6,000 square feet of office space and a building at the very southern end of the property, which would be, well, you can see my mouse, so it's down here at the bottom. And that would be a maximum height of 43 feet. And then the other proposal is to extend Post Street, where it crosses White Rock Road, southward through the project. And then it would come along through the project and wind its way through and would terminate towards the the bottom of the project, where it would have an alternate entrance on Latrobe Road. And so there you'd have an entrance on Latrobe, a right in, right out only. You'd have the 2 entrances as they exist right now on White Rock Road. I'm going to move this ahead. And that's a basic layout of what the proposal was from the original documents that were proposed. And I see that Tom Purcell from the planning department is raising his hand. And I'm going to go ahead. I got to get back. Let me unshare this. And where are you, Tom? There you are. Tom, go ahead, and you have something you need to provide for us. We'd love to hear it.
All right. Well, this is Tom from the Planning Division. I thought I would just give a quick overview. I know many of you are familiar with the project. It's been circulating since 2015 and before in various iterations. So what I wanted to just give an overview of the EAR. I think Mr. Davey explained very well a thumbnail of the project. So if you'd like, I can go through the notice of availability of the EIR, what we're looking at, some of the timelines that we're looking at right now, preliminary information on our upcoming Planning Commission review and comment workshop, and any questions you might have on the project itself. So would that work just to go with a quick overview and then answer questions?
Sure, that'd be great, Tom.
So if I can share my screen here. Is my screen sharing on? I'm not sure how I would do that.
I'm looking real quick. Why is it not popping up? If you want to briefly talk about it, I'm going to go ahead and try to get that for you. Let's see.
All right. Well, as soon as you do, I was just going to, I have it on my screen. All right, here we go. So I'll just read off the information, and then if we get it live, then we'll go with that, since I'm on audio as well. So just looking at the NOA, let's see, here we are. So I guess just a thumbnail of the project. I think most of you saw the documents that were posted to the web page, so that's all there. Can you all see the NOA on my screen now?
I'm almost
Should
there.
have the.
No, not yet.
I don't know if I need to share my screen.
I think you do. Hold on. There we go. Can you try that one more time to share it?
Let's see. There we go. And then we grab this one.
Perfect.
All right. So now you should be seeing it, correct?
Yes.
Looking good.
Thank you.
So just looking at the highlights, a lot of folks have been asking, I've only received 3 public comments so far, but a lot of folks have been asking how they can review and comment on the project EIR. So the purpose of the EIR, as you know, is to review the significant environmental impacts of the project, as well as to give an overview for public disclosure. So folks have the opportunity to review and comment on any environmental effects or any issues that make sure get included in the EIR, so it's fully analyzed with anything the community has an interest in or might be triggered by. So looking at it, the document is available from about last week. It will be available for public comment up through July 13th. So that gives a 45 full day comment period by law. It is also available, as most of you know, on our planning webpage, front and center. So I'm sure if you folks need to know, I can direct you right there. You go to El Dorado County Planning Services and you see the EIR link. You can click view and download it there. I've also had some requests for hard copies of the EIR. We don't have available hard copies at this time for various reasons, but should the public counter open before July 13th, and there's talk that we're going to try to, then I do have a hard copy of the EIR or 2 as well. For folks if folks want to walk in and copy pages, if you're old school and you want to look at it that way, I hope to have something available you can look at. So again, if you do have public comments, the easiest way to submit is just our project web address, montano@edcgov.us. You can link, attach anything you like there. And then again, as most of you know, there is a public workshop for review and comment on the draft EIR June 25th as part of the regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting on that date. The agenda time hasn't been set up yet, but I understand it will be the later end of the regular agenda after the other items are called. So there will be time, we're anticipating an hour or 2, possibly more, to receive your comments. It will also be held via Zoom format, so this is a good way to dial in any bugs you might have to make sure your comments are submitted. And then by way of the project, I know most of you looked at the project description, the proposed retail, the proposed hotel. There are proposed special events being analyzed as part of the project. So we do have a table in the notice of availability. This is just taken right out of the EIR just to give you at a glance rather than having to go through the whole document. This just shows you some of the sample events that could happen between the existing center, which is phase 1 of the development now in existence, and proposed phase 2, which will be on the approximate 20-acre parcel to the south of the existing center. So these are all things there. Again, this color photo shows those locations Mr. Davey was showing that where the potential events could occur. And then I just have a list here of the entitlement requests, what they're actually asking for to allow for this coordinated development between what's there now and what's being proposed. In other words, these entitlements will help them to move across property lines, share special events between areas of the plaza, allow them to, among other things, they need a use permit to allow office uses, because this may allow regional commercial shopping, but it doesn't allow office for some reason. So that's also being added just to give a full spectrum of available uses. This is a summary of the environmental effects that are discussed in the draft document right now that you can link to. And then I think you've seen the preliminary site plan and the preliminary aerophoto of the location. So I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time. I believe the applicant is also available if you had more details you needed at this time.
Does anyone have any questions for Tom?
John Rasslier, I do have a question. How does this new proposal, how is it different from what's been presented previously?
In terms of, not sure what you mean by presented previously.
Well, we've seen this plan before at least 2 times. And I'm wondering what has changed that it has to be shown now a 3rd time.
Right. I know one of the reasons this was circulated before, and it didn't change much in my understanding from the time I believe APAC saw it before. That was its original submittal was out as part of the scoping for the EIR. So as far as the initial announcement that an EIR is going to be started, the first step in the California Environmental Quality Act is to do some outreach, some scoping, for at least for projects of this nature. So the initial map that you saw, I believe it was very similar, but that was to scope to look for and what environmental effects to study. So that was to get input from the community as part of the various workshops that it covered. And that document went out, I think, in 2016, and we had another one, I think it was 2017, if I'm not mistaken. But this is not the first time you've seen this, but this is the first project document attached to the formal environmental impact report.
Thank you.
Yeah, I believe the scoping meeting was in 2017 and it was recirculated in 2018.
Correct.
Yeah, so yeah, it looks very similar. And as you suggest, this is the first official release of the project documents with the draft environmental impact report. Okay.
John Vania here. Is there any way, you said you had some extra copies of the environmental document. Is there any way I could borrow one for a few days?
Unfortunately, I don't have an extra copy right now. I mean, and I was asking about it, and we can discuss offline. It might be something that our county print shop could put together. I don't know, but I can put the request out there if you'd like one and let you know.
Great, I appreciate it, because I also talked about maybe sharing that with APAC, possibly, if that's an option.
Yeah, I'll let you know for sure. There's just a lot of moving parts on that one, and we have limitations on the copies of this document for reasons that I don't want to go into right now.
That's
but
fine.
I can look into that for you for sure.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay, are there any more questions for Tom?
Yeah, Tom, this is Tim White, Vice Chair of APAC. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. It's a 45-day review period, and I understand, that's the statutory required time frame. But I think you may be receiving a request not only from APAC, but maybe from some of the individual neighbors for a 15 to 30 day extension to the comment period. I do believe that an extension would be warranted given the fact that the DIR is, I think, 346 pages. And then when you add various exhibits and schedules and stuff like that, it's, you know, closer to 500. I think in all fairness to the community, I think giving us the additional time to present formal comments is probably to the benefit of all, including the developer. It also, given the fact that this project has been sitting with planning for almost 3 years now, and, you know, a lot of time for a lot of documents to be generated, giving additional time for public comment, either to the end of July or to August 13th, would benefit the entire process and the goals of transparency that the county has for projects of this type.
Gotcha. What I recommend, if you don't mind, is just shooting me an email just so I have it for the record in writing, especially because I get emails from like 4 different or 5 different sources. And I'd like to make sure that all interested parties, including the applicant team and all other folks, are aware of, in case they're not able to attend the meeting. If that wouldn't be a problem, but I can definitely let folks know.
Yeah, no, we will definitely get you a formal request. We've done this in the past for projects of this type. I mean, we don't, you know, we recognize counties, staff's time and stuff like that. But at the same time, overall, and a 15 or 30 day additional comment is not going to hurt, I think, anyone. It's certainly not going to move up the frame for, you know, shovels to hit ground if the project is ultimately approved.
Right. Okay. Well, I will let folks know.
Thank you.
Hey, Tom. All right, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
This is Vinyl Perkins, the developer of the project.
Hello.
How are you, sir?
We're very good. I'm glad that you were able to come in tonight.
Yes, I've been watching. I don't need to make a presentation because you guys have been doing my work for me. Hey, Tom, you know, we've been talking about doing the 45-day and then possibly even kicking around doing a 60-day based on the fact that this EIR report is very large. We have been working on it for years. As a matter of fact, I remember working on this thing since 2013. With the COVID crisis going on, with everybody struggling with the Zoom, I think inevitably we are going to end up with some extended time, Tom. And I think that it's real important for us to make sure that everybody has their comments and they're able to go through this process and take a look at it. We're building this shopping center for the community. There's a lot in here that doesn't have to be here. We're developing it. We're trying to do better than we did in the first phase. And I think we've done a pretty good job in the first phase, but we have a high standard to hit and we want to do some really very, very nice things here. So the comment from public is going to be very important. So I wouldn't, Tom, I'm going to tell you, we've been doing this thing for years. I don't think an extra 15 days is going to hurt anybody. The comments.
All right. Well, I'll definitely forward that on for sure.
Okay.
So, and Mel is unfortunately one of the other project team, my supervisor, Mel Pavlinas, was not able to join us on this call. And he's also worked on this project with several years experience as well. But I'd be happy to run it by him and then yourself as the applicant, and then we can work on making those things happen. That's not a problem.
Yeah, I told Tom, I asked Mel Pavlinas how long he's been in the business. He said he's been with planning for the last 15 years. And I said, hey, you've been working on my project for half of your career.
Sure.
But planning's done a fantastic job. I can't tell you how blessed I feel having Tom on board, Tom Purcell, Mel Pavlinas, all the people up there in the planning department has been tremendous. And I can't thank them enough. So I'm here at your disposal. I think we've got a very, very nice layout. I think we've got a beautiful presentation. for everyone. We've paid attention to detail and to the residential areas behind us. And I'm just hoping that we're going to end up getting some support on this thing.
That's good. Very good. We're so glad that you called tonight. We actually have a couple of residents that have their hands up. They would like to ask a couple of questions. So Dan, would you want to go ahead and start?
Sure. Sorry about that. I was muted. So questions I have are really around the amphitheater. You know, I have obviously concerns. I could throw a rock and hit the amphitheater. So very close.
You got a strong arm.
Yeah, well, you know, it's not far from the property line of Creekside Greens, and
Yes.
One of the concerns I have is, you know, it sounds like a nice thing, but as it is now, when Relish is having live bands, when 36 Handles is having live bands that are supposed to wrap up by 9 o'clock, and I'm still hearing them at 11 o'clock at night, I can hear them. I can make out words in my backyard. So, what kind of controls are we going to have in place to really have some sort of a limit on the times that these are going to be the people in those houses along the fence line are going to be blasted by that amphitheater?
You know, before Tom jumps in, I'd like to kind of grab that real quick. I've had issues also with Relish going beyond the limit. And I've actually even been out there with a gauge trying to figure out what the decibel levels are out there. And it's been up and it's been down. It's been within toleration. I've had some issues with them. Generally 36 Handles, other than the St. Patrick's Day, has always been inside unless the doors have been open. So I really can't speak too much to that. I think most of my issues has been with that big patio out there on the corner of Latrobe and White Rock. But just getting back to the amphitheater, this amphitheater is going to be controlled entirely by the landlord, not by the tenant. So they kind of have a space as part of their area that they have, you know, identified within specs in their lease, and they tend to push that, which tenants sometimes do, you know. And I do have concern about that. I've got concern about, I had concern about that amphitheater from day one, being worried about those, the amperes that are coming out, the decibels. But if you take a look at it, we're building that amphitheater down into the hillside, and the stage is actually down where when people are sitting watching the presentations, they're looking down with walls on both sides of them that actually goes down to between, I believe, between 15 and 20 feet. And so the stage is down basically in a hole. And so within the EIR, we've identified landscaping and sound deadening walls and times that we're going to be wrapping it up. And that's going to end up being mandated through our development agreement. So not to mention, we also have to have certain noise levels that are, you know, within toleration and low, and that's also identified in the EIR. So, you know, mainly the main reason why I put this in, and a lot of people said, look, what are you doing? That doesn't make any money. It's just an amp. I'm doing this for the community. You know, I had Runway Boutique saying, can we do bridal shows there? Can we do a runway there? Can EDMT, the El Dorado Music Theater, can we pull them in there and have some things for the community? So we've got Town Center next door. They've got a thing over there where they've.
Put me on speaker. I hope not.
Oops, did you just get muted? Mr. Perkins, are you muted? There you go.
Okay, it said muted, and I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
And I didn't touch anything. I've been just sitting in my chair.
I know, I just saw it flash up. So, but we heard you right up to after you discussed the.
Yeah, so I'll wrap up what I was going to say. I was just going to say that, you know, Town Center's got a big deal going on over there where they're blasting big time music with thousands of people. This is nothing like that. This is nothing more than the possibility of bringing kids in to do some plays, maybe doing a Monday night movies at Montano with some black and whites or something. wrapping it up at 9 o'clock, doing some daytime stuff, maybe, you know. And what I did was I took the version of downtown Napa where they had that beautiful little amphitheater in their redevelopment district, and I mimicked it and shrunk it down to about a third of what they are, just to bring this in and provide something additional as a presentation for the community. That's it. I mean, there's nothing else. If that was eliminated, we would save money. But I think that if people understood with what's going on these days, shopping centers have got to get built for people who want to just come there to relax and to see things and to be entertained, not necessarily to buy things anymore. So that's what I'm trying to integrate into this master plan, is the integration of some sort of a sense of place for people. That's all.
Okay. We have a couple more people with their hands up. Chrissy, would you go ahead? You're next.
Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
Okay. My name is Chrissy Gajewski. I also live in Creekside Greens. And Ms. Parker, I'm really glad that you're here. I really appreciate you calling in. I just wanted one clarification and then a couple other points that I have here. John Davey, you had mentioned, and I just want to clarify that there was going to be an extension from Park Drive, and I'm looking at the map right now that's on the screen, and are you saying that entrance exit on Latrobe that's closest to Monteverde is being taken out of the plans, or that's still there as it is on this picture right now?
Tom or Mr. Perkins, do you want to address the Park Drive? I'm sorry, the post.
Post Street. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, the post extension through the project.
Tom, do you want to tackle that, or do you want me to?
Well, actually, I don't have a representative from transportation here, which is the folks that would be actually recommending the improvements or not, or the different site-specific transportation impacts. So if you wanted to go ahead and just kind of explain what top level what we're looking at, I can pull up the plan here.
Well, I can just say that we've been working on this for years, because any type of a shopping center that's got this type of investment in amenities, it can't survive with the right in, right out, first off. So we were looking at the traffic signal that was dead on between Monteverde or Golden Foothill Parkway to the south and Latrobe and White Rock to the north. And what we found was that if we were to add a main entrance with a full movement signal in the middle, dead on along Latrobe Road, and actually we're even talking with possibly Jackson Properties, that's for something else. But if we could get dispersion of vehicles, that if they wanted to visit Montano or even daylight through Post Street onto White Rock Road and travel eastbound to Silver Valley Parkway, or go across to Town Center, which we are lined up with Town Center, they would be able to do that without impacting that big intersection of Latrobe and White Rock. At the same time, it would provide good access, adequate access for this type of gross leasable square footage that this center is hoping to present. The entrance to the south, closest to Monteverde, that is nothing more than a right in, right out. It's already existing. All we're doing is just adding on to it, so people who are traveling northbound along Latrobe and they pass Monteverde, they have an opportunity to simply just take a right and go in to the south end of the property.
Okay.
And that's actually where we're going to put a 10-foot sidewalk, and we're going to extend it to Monteverde. That is going to help with the bike lanes.
Right. No, I appreciate that. I remember when it was presented, I had asked if those sidewalks could be extended all the way to our neighborhood so that our community could really walk there and utilize it. The reason I bring it up is my main concern is when White Rock is extended, we are getting blocked basically from exiting left currently out of our neighborhood. So Monteverde is going to become a huge intersection for us to be leaving our neighborhood and be able to go in whatever direction we want. I'm concerned about that right entrance just because of the speed limit on Latrobe right now. I just feel like we're coming onto Latrobe, trying to get at speed, and then someone's trying to make a right-hand turn right in there. But that's derailing this conversation because.
Well, it's really not. I mean, we're all impacted by that, and I've been taking a hard look at the JPA connector. You know, you've got Folsom Ranch that's building like crazy. Folsom Ranch is undoubtedly most of those residences. If we're playing our cards right here in El Dorado County, we're going to be able to draw from those guys. So instead of them going up there to Palladio, we're going to be able to pull on our end, and that's what I'm looking for, is a little bit of tax dollars. You know, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, they say. But at the same time, you know, with the Silva Valley interchange, the JPA, and all that stuff, with what everybody's planning, that's going to be a busy road. White Rock is going to be busy. So that's definitely, it's always a concern.
My other question for you was, you know, the amphitheater's already been brought up as a noise concern. The hotel has also kind of been on our radar. Where phase 1 is currently and where the bank is, and that huge retaining wall and those poor houses right under it that have a view of a retaining wall. A lot of people along Monteverde are wondering if we could get some sort of line of sight drawing in. You know, when you tell us how large and how tall the hotel is going to be, we don't really know what that looks like to the houses that are currently there. Does that make sense? You're saying that the amphitheater is going to be dug in,
yeah,
which is nice to hear. But we also just don't know what that's going to look like from the backyards of Monteverde.
Yeah, that's a fair question. You know, the main building, the one building that's going to be closest is the one that's in the middle. The one where when you pull in the main entrance and you go to the back. In looking at the residential area and seeing this regional commercial center, I did everything that I could to pull these buildings as close to Latrobe Road as I could.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but we also needed to make a site plan work. So, you know, in looking at that, we pulled the hotel, we paid particular attention that we angled it. So, you know, so that the majority of anything that is as far as visual aspect from that hotel is looking, looking off into areas that to the north and south and not towards the residential area. We did the best that we could on that one. And so it's, you know, it is, what we're looking for is a Marriott Spring Hill suite. So if you are ever up in Roseville or you're in Natomas, there's a few Spring Hill suites around. It's a typical, typical hotel. Usually they go 124 rooms. We actually shortened it, and we ended up going with 100 rooms. So it's pretty much down to the room, the exact same size as the Holiday Inn. So, and then I think a while back, I'm going to have to look into our archives. I thought we did a visual impact analysis. Do you remember that, Tom?
I'm looking at it now. I don't, that would be a good question. If folks don't mind submitting that for a comment, I'd really appreciate it, because unfortunately with the technology and schedule limits, the EIR consultant, I don't believe he's on the line, but I know they did some studies on that for sure, because height and visual is one of the criteria for impacts that they have to look at. But I don't have my fingertips on exactly what they looked at. If I can find it while we're waiting, I'll let you know. But I would definitely like to make sure that comment is filed so that we can make sure it's addressed.
Yeah, and then that also being said, I was the developer of the U.S. Bank as well. So don't get out your pistols and shoot at me, all right?
No.
But and we learned a lot on that one, and we did everything within our power with everything that was going on. We did everything we could to make the backyards of those other properties look good, even though you had a big retaining wall there. What was there before was a big fence line and a detention basin, an overground detention basin for wastewater. That's what was there. And then there was a hill that went up, and there was the shopping center there. What we did was we dug a big hole and we put that big detention center oversized detention basin underneath the parking lot at US Bank. And then when we built that, the retaining wall, we did it in such a way that it became a living wall. And so really, if you take a look at it with those 4 or 5 houses that are there, it's nicely landscaped back there as far as I know. I know we put in our Italian cypresses and growing ivy, and I take a look at it. We maintain the V-ditch and we see it, and it's nice. But the unique thing about the shopping center is that the way the hillside moves from north to south, the edge, you know, we're only a few houses away from leveling out between the houses and the what would you say, Tom? And the level of the shopping center becomes equalized. And then the houses start to rise above the shopping center.
Right. I understand that.
So,
and the rest of our neighborhood does slope down. I think that's where the biggest concern from residents about noise comes in, because we do have a creek going through our neighborhood, and we get one neighbor that plays loud music. It spreads throughout the entire neighborhood just because of the slope of our neighborhood and that open space in the middle.
I thought that guy moved away.
I no comment.
No.
I appreciate you answering my question, and I hate to speak for my neighborhood, but I think we are very willing to reach a compromise, with these concerns, extending the sidewalks, shortening the time that music can be played. And it sounds like you're willing to work with us, because I personally agree. I am excited for a potential cupcake ice cream shop that the kids can be going to and have events there. So I appreciate you again calling in and answering our questions. And it sounds like we'll be able to reach a compromise and create.
Absolutely. There's one thing that I've learned in my years of development. First off, I should have never have done it. Number two is that when you do it, don't try to recreate the wheel. Go in with what the vision is. This is a regional shopping center location. Don't try to make trash out of it. Don't try to maximize all of your parking. And that being said, we've got some changes that are going to be made to the first phase. I've learned a lot since we built that. Okay, I know we've got parking issues over there. I don't want to do that again in the second phase. We're going to be changing some stuff. So, what we want to do is we want to do a delivery. This is a delivery for you guys. I want this to be a cake topper for the community. This isn't just for profit, and then we're going to end up selling. We've had this thing through the Great Recession. We managed to survive through 2007, 2008. I have no idea how we did. And now that we're going through the COVID crisis, everything is changing. We're talking about a new normal. But I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we're going to be able to get hospitality back. But with that being said, I'll just leave it at this. More than ever, any retail plaza that you're ever going to build in your entire life, if you're a developer, costing millions and millions of dollars, you've got to have a place for people to come that they enjoy, that they feel comfortable in, they feel safe in, and they just want to meet their friends there, maybe have some entertainment. It's not necessarily about going into the stores. If you don't have an experience, people are going to be calling up Amazon, and we're dead. So, I'm hoping that the first phase was a good example, and I think we can do better.
Awesome, good news. Hey, we have 3 more people have questions, but we'd like to cap this for this segment of the agenda by about 8 o'clock. If we can give about 6-7 more minutes here. If you're willing to entertain these. The next person who had a question, I believe, was Carrie.
Hi, my name is Carrie, and I am a resident of Creekside Greens, which is the homes right behind your proposed building, and I've lived here since 2005. When I first saw this is the first time I've seen this, and I did get something in the mail. I haven't seen it over the years, this proposal. Thank you, Chrissy and Dan. I'm warming up to the idea of all this. I guess my primary question is, how are you going to help control traffic in our neighborhood going into Monte Verde and into our community when construction is going on and then thereafter? We're a small development, and the last thing we need is people speeding through our development, we already have traffic problems. So how are you going to help control the construction phase of this?
I hope Tom is listening to this, because you bring up a valid point. But you know, when you talk about this, I think about offsite developments. And when you talk about offsite, you know, if you're biting into Latrobe Road, you're expanding it out. You've got guys out there with flags, and you've got certain things going on that's impeding traffic moving north to south on Latrobe, or even on White Rock Road. I can see that, but we've already got our entrance into phase 1 that is not going to be impeded whatsoever. Nothing's going to change. Nobody belongs going into the new area, and most of our access with our construction is going to be from White Rock and Post Street. I wish I had a little. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Can you all see
that's
that on
good.
the screen?
I like that.
Can you see my screen here?
Yeah, I can see it. But you know, I think most of our construction material is going to be coming up through the main entrance, and it's going to come along here and move along the back end and come in where the graveled area is now, where the construction trailer is. But as far as Latrobe and White Rock being impeded by any of the construction, this is all on site, and I don't see anything. Impeding traffic along Latrobe. What's your comment, Tom?
I would echo the same thing. I mean, basically, I'd like to get some more information from transportation, because those are the folks that do the field work with implementing construction planning and signage and traffic safety. So really, it's a lot of that. The operations has a whole DOT unit of our county that just does that to make sure that impacts are reduced. Yes, the environmental impact report will address some of that, but what is already covered by law and policy under regular operations will be handled by DOT. So I would rather have DOT speak to that. I don't believe they were on this call tonight. But if those of you that can join the Planning Commission Zoom workshop item on the 25th, I would definitely ask that question of DOT again, because they can give you the details. I don't look at that part of it usually.
Okay, thank you for
That's a
answering my
legitimate question. I think
Okay.
it's something that we want to bring up. I don't want to, impede anybody or hurt anybody back there. I mean, you're our customers. We pissed you guys off. You're not going to be buying at our shopping center. Okay, so well, we want to address that issue.
Okay.
I appreciate you, our community, giving us enough time to answer, like, do whatever the response is called. Like, what's the deadline? July 15th or something?
Well, it was 45 days, but I'm proposing 60.
Okay.
And if we could do that, that would be great. And I'm going to tell you why. It's not because I want to jam anybody up or rush anyone. It's because we are under such a deadline. If we're going to even do anything, even start grading at all next year, we have to get beyond this so we can do a whole lot of other things, including construction drawings and agreements with the county, and even with stuff that we're doing internally with Marriott hotels and and financing. There's so much that has to be done. We'll be lucky to get this out of the ground in 2020. And if you can imagine, I've been working on this thing since 2013, 14, 15. Everybody knows, and I'm just dying on the vine here on this project.
Okay. So we do have, here's who we have left who wants to ask a few questions. I believe the next one would be Jessica, then it would be Lauren, and then Commissioner Vigna has something. So Jessica, if you want to jump in right now.
Yeah, I also live in Creekside Greens on Monteverde. And so obviously a lot of concern there. A lot of the neighbors I've been talking to are concerned about if there's going to be enough parking for a hotel plus events. I know during like the 4th of July event at Town Center, cars are parked all up and down our streets. Is that something that's being taken into consideration, having the 100-room hotel plus any events that might be going on?
There won't be any events at the hotel because it's a non-service hotel.
Right, just like if there's an event like at the amphitheater and
yeah, it won't be big enough. It just won't be big enough. We're not looking at this. This is not gonna that amphitheater is small. It's not going to,
Okay. It's
I
not
don't,
going to be like 4th of July every week.
I don't. I mean, I see farmers markets. And by the way, when you guys take a look at the events, we're not going to have all those events. I just pulled out every event that I could think is feasible for this project, because in El Dorado County, for each event that you have as a one-day use, it costs $1,000 for whatever it is. And I think the community would like to see some things happening in this shopping center. You know, you take a look at Patriots Day, you look at the runway stuff, you look at El Dorado Music Theater. You know, I've had kids go through the music theater. I think they would love to have an opportunity to see this. I don't think it's going to be that big. Yeah, that's the way I see it, you know, and I just don't see it. You know,
Okay.
it's not town center. It's a beautiful retail plaza, but it's more boutique. It's not a town center.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Let's see who was, Lauren was next.
Hello. So I read through some of the 300 plus pages. So one of them mentions is a subwoofer was never going to be allowed at the amphitheater. So it got noted. And the reason I got it noted is that what's the follow through, what's the follow up, what's the enforcement? Those questions don't have to be answered now. We're trying to get this done quickly. So I just want it noted. When you're taking the rating for the noise, I would like to know, because it doesn't state it in that, where the noise ratings are done, because our house specifically is right in the middle of our neighborhood, and there is not a single place that if someone has a party in their backyard or does something that's up the hill that we don't hear. And it's literally, like she was saying verbatim, I can repeat people's conversations. It's kind of like being in certain places where they built it, where you can talk on one side of it all the way across the yard field, you can hear the words. And a lot of people in the neighborhood open their windows at night in the summer to cool their homes here. So that would just be another thing, is where's the ratings taking? Is it taken just around the site, or is it actually taken in our neighborhood? And then when the concerts go too long, after, let's say, 10 more years of development being done, and nobody remembers that it's not supposed to go past a certain time, who would we hold accountable? Do we call the sheriff's department on that? Or is there some way to report those things and have a process for complaint?
Yeah. That condition is going to be in perpetuity. It doesn't matter who owns the shopping center. Nobody's planning on selling it anyway, but you never know. You never say never. But it is in perpetuity. It is going to be in the development agreement. And I would imagine, I personally think that if there are things that we do, such as strobe lights, going beyond the music levels that we've agreed to, that there is an enforcement that can, and fines that could be brought down upon the ownership. That's how I see it. And I'm okay with that. I back up everything I say.
And like I said, I'm just trying to respect that we have a time limit. So I just want to go through the list so that they can be documented and we can go forward. Yeah. But there's just a couple other things of when we hit a capacity load, what's the number, who or what will send home the people once they hit that, and that it's no longer spilling out into the street, or that, sorry, I have this many people here. I also read a part about the dust control and using dust curtains. I also read a part about the backup beepers that will be used on heavy equipment being reduced or muted, and what time that is, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., which I have a feeling people with small children that are not in school age group might not appreciate the 7 a.m. or 7 p.m. beepings. The view shed that was already mentioned. We have 2 entrances. I think one of our concerns that wasn't understood is that both of our entrances are both double backed. So it's one entrance and an entrance, and an exit and exit. And one of our concerns also is, due to the recent situations with fires, we only have 2 ways out for 179 homes in this neighborhood, plus a possible another 6 duplexes that could eventually be built here. If you times that times children, families, and cars, that's a lot of people coming out of 2 small exits, and the impact there. And so I would just really encourage that traffic pattern to really be looked at and give some really actuals, with us having to leave in a rapid succession, what that would look like with those lights. and without a light. And then also developer versus the people that live here, who is the responsible party once the developer is done with developing. Like I said, we have, our neighborhood got developed, there was rules written in and stuff, and now we don't know who to go through or go to get those enforced anymore. So I just like somewhere where that's going to either be documented or said. It doesn't mean that we don't want a development. It does mean that we want to work as a partner and make sure these things are documented.
I think that you just have legitimate concerns, and that this is your home. And, you know, it's to many, it's the greatest investment of your life. I get that. You have
I raised my hand.
Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted, as working with as the project manager with the county, were you going to be submitting those comments in writing so that I can make sure that all those questions that you had are addressed? There were a lot of them. I'd like to make sure that we don't miss anything.
I think that we're going to work as a, I think we were going to work as a team in our neighborhood to make sure those are addressed, but I wanted it said in a way that everyone was hearing that those are some of the issues that are concerning.
And when you do that, when you do, and this is kind of how I work, when you do have a meeting, whether it's through Zoom or otherwise, can you keep me as a developer informed, and I could be at your disposal?
That's fair. I believe that we were talking about a possible follow-up dedicated to this year project, and we had looked at that 45-day timeline, and we were talking about sometime next week possibly. But if 60 days is more appropriate, then maybe it doesn't have to be next week. But we'll take that offline, and I believe that we've had those conversations. But we'd like to get more residents involved, and we want to be fair so that you have time to answer questions, and we want to be fair to residents to ask the questions too. And we're a little constrained tonight. I'm looking right now. Who is next? I believe Commissioner Vega had his hand up.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Vinyl. I appreciate it and appreciate your input. You had mentioned about your the requested full access with a signal off the probe, that was necessary for this to be, it was a necessary item for your project. And I know we don't have transportation here, but traffic is always a big concern. And could you address that further because, of the concerns for an enhanced access to your development, the concerns with, the neighboring residents for, potentially additional traffic delays, for that signalized intersection for your development.
You want to tackle that, Tom?
I know transportation has already looked into that to a very great detail. So I would defer most of that conversation to DOT, not that I can't take a stab at it, but those are the folks that have actually run the traffic counts. They've done some physical counts. They've run computer simulations that are some of the best in the state to see, because I personally run our traffic demand model. Most people don't know that, but digitally they can get really close on seeing where the intersection choke points are going to be, for nothing else, to see where they need to be putting into their development plans. But those are all the studies that DOT does, and that's what they spent large sections of this EIR doing. And DOT has also crafted several custom conditions of approval to make sure that whether the state continues changing the CEQA, the environmental metrics for traffic, or not, as they have recently changed, that the issues for traffic control will still be handled through a lot of these custom conditions on this site. So I'd rather have DOT speak to that if that's not a problem. I can definitely let them know. But if I could, in fact, if we could have a conversation next about that, I could see perhaps at the next meeting if DOT staff would be available to comment on all the research they've done.
Yeah, I was speaking more to, the applicant's comment that was necessary, for the development.
Okay, well, first off, I think when we first approached this, when we are dealing with tenants, retail and trying to lease up vacant space and make it tenable for regionals and nationals. When you get up into the levels of the Trader Joe's and the Marriott's, they require full access into their site. And without it, if we say, look, you know, we've got access on White Rock Road, but we have a right in, right out on Latrobe Road, they're going to pass us up. And that was made clear to me and clear to my group from the very beginning. And we started this project right off the bat saying, look, you know, we need to take a look at this and see what the benefits are to everybody by having that traffic signal here. And one of the arguments, we also had Jackson Properties across the street who said that eventually, you know, of course, they've got a light over on Windplay. And I've talked to Greg Mason at, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but the way I look at it is that with Post Street coming all the way through Town Center, across the street, into our plaza, wrapping all the way around, down our main entrance, and then daylighting onto Latrobe Road with the full movement intersection, with conditions that DOT has been very strict with us on regarding timing of signals and all kinds of stuff that people are going to hear. It's going to provide better flow, north and south, east and west. And if they'll listen to me, maybe we can even get a little further on some other offsites where that light can actually punch through, not only from our property, but also going into the Jackson property, you know, across the street, and then daylight onto Windplay. So people who are coming from Folsom won't have to be impacted by Latrobe and White Rock. People coming north.
Okay, well, I look forward to that future discussion, and thank you very much.
Awesome. We do have one, we got to cut it off of this one. Gay has hand up right now. So Gay, if you're prepared, go ahead.
Yeah, I actually like the looks of all of this, but I'm really worried about how it's going to impact the traffic on White Rock Road, where you have it coming in and out at White Rock and Post Street, I believe. Is there, do you see it not impacting the traffic there, especially with those apartments going in at Town Center? See right here?
Oops.
And then going, I can see people going that way.
We might have, I think we might have lost Mr. Perkins.
I'm sorry, no, I just got back.
Okay. The question was about the access at White Rock.
Okay, so we're gonna have to repeat that because I felt, now I'm getting some echoing.
Let's see. Now I'm getting it too.
Okay. Did he hear my question?
Not all.
I did not.
Okay, my question is, I like the plan, I really do. But this intersection here at Post Street and White Rock, do you see it not impacting White Rock going, what, that would be east towards Town Center? You don't think that would be impacting White Rock at all, or somewhat, or a whole lot? Especially with all the apartments that they're building in Town Center.
I think I'm going to try to get through this with the echoing going on without screwing this thing up. But all I can say is that, you know, I'm watching the JPA connector and how that is going to impact that intersection. And there is going to be, with those apartments going into Town Center, there's always going to be an impact, but it actually also makes that intersection more feasible than ever. It helps. And if we have the access on Latrobe Road, along with the access there and the right in, right outs, we're going to have appropriate dispersion as far as we've, you know, studied. And I think that DOT would agree with us. I think that's why we're doing it. Not to mention, we're going to be doing traffic signal timing with fiber optics. God knows how much that's going to cost, but that's a condition.
I appreciate that.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Is that Gay talking?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Okay, well, we took this a little longer
Hey,
than we
John.
wanted to for you, but we wanted to be fair for everyone
John?
tonight. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap this portion of the meeting up. We appreciate you being involved in it. We appreciate the residents coming in with good questions. We'll look forward to possibly having a dedicated meeting for this. Unfortunately, we probably have to do it through Zoom again. But if we do, then we'll go ahead and schedule it. We'll get an email out to everyone so that everyone's aware. And we'll look forward to having a little more discussion about this.
Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Tom, and thank you, Mr. Perkins.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Take care, guys.
All right. Okay, so I'm gonna switch this real quick so you can see what's coming up next. Hope you guys can see that. Next up on our agenda, it's basically some recaps and some updates of what's going on with projects that are either in process or in the process of approvals. Very basically, Supervisor Hydahl talked about this earlier tonight. I don't know if Commissioner Vigna wants to weigh in on this, but essentially the Central El Dorado Hills specific plan had been scheduled for 4 Planning Commission hearings. There have been 3. One was in El Dorado Hills, highly attended, several hundred people. They've had several continuances asked for each subsequent scheduled meeting. There's a continuance requested for tomorrow's meeting, and based on the fact that the applicant doesn't believe that, or I guess staff doesn't believe that there's a official policy in place to how to implement or analyze the vehicle miles traveled data, which is now part of SECRA as of July 1st. This project actually was preceded July 1st to 2020, but now they're concerned that this might come back later if the project were approved or if the project were denied, and VMT might be a part of it. So they've had VMT data in hand. They've had it for a few months. No one has seen it outside the county, and they have this request tomorrow for a continuance. There is no date certain for this continuance. They want the feedback from the Board of Supervisors to staff on how they would recommend implementing this and how they analyze this data. In their letter to request a continuance, they had suggested, that the Board of Supervisors would be looking at this in late June or in July of 2020. So the planning staff recommends that the continuance be granted, and there'll be a determination tomorrow. I guess I would turn to Commissioner Vigna and ask, is that an accurate assessment of where we're at? If there's anything else you want to throw in.
Yeah, let me just add to that I have asked our county council and our transportation director to provide some details as to why the delays. And it's, COVID-19 was part of it, but it's predominantly the VMT analysis. And we technically are not required to do a VMT analysis, but it was determined that because of it being required as of July, that it would be prudent to do so. So we're going to have some detailed discussions concerning that, and we're going to be considering some options. And so I would encourage you guys to tune in on that. So I think we're going to have a lot of good information for people to to take in. So I would strongly encourage anyone who can to listen in.
And that meeting's tomorrow, and it starts at 8:30 if I'm remembering correctly, and it is via Zoom. So your residents can log on the way they're logging on here.
Right. Yeah. Just go into the agenda, and you'll have the the information there on the agenda how to tap in.
Yeah, we have it shared on the APAC website as well.
Right, and it's our only item. We just got some procedural things to go through for our minutes and our agenda, and and so forth. But that's going to be our only item. So we're gonna spend some time talking about it. So I think it's going to be some good information to share with for any and all who attend.
Okay. Are there any questions about this? Obviously, I don't have any answers, but if there are any questions or comments about this specific project? I don't
John?
see. Hello?
Hey, John, Tim.
Oh, Tim, there you go.
Yeah. Hey, since we're talking about, level of service and vehicle miles transferred, if you looked at the Montano de Oro DEIR, about 220 pages in, they did a long discussion of both the VMT requirements as they understood it for their project, and also for the LOS county requirements for their project. So it's just interesting that at least one project can, at least decided to address it in their DEIR and not use it as a delaying tactic to the detriment of the community. And I'll leave it at that.
Well, let me just, I wouldn't say it's a delay tactic, Tim. The problem is with commercial, and we experienced this with Dollar General, because they did a VMT analysis, and it's a whole different deal. The commercial component is a whole lot more simpler to address in VMT as opposed to residential. So that's the challenge for Central, is because it's residential.
Okay.
If that helps.
Okay.
Okay.
Are there any more questions regarding this? Seeing none. Let's I'm going to jump over real quick so you can at least, sorry, I'm getting that for you. See where we're at. So we have a few more items, and they're just quick updates. I'd like to get this wrapped up so that everyone can enjoy the rest of their evening. The first item on our update list is the Silver Springs Parkway Southern Extension to Bass Lake Road. The northern extension's been completed for several years. These are a couple of looks at what the road looks like currently, and this is just north of Madera Way. It's on the northeast side of Bass Lake, very near the Woodridge Village entrance. And the image on the right of your screen is the southbound segment of Bass Lake Road, and the gravel there is basically the area where the road's going to be coming through. I talked originally at the Department of Transportation late last week. They do have a bunch of the area outside the Woodridge Village. They have it staked off. They are looking at some utility relocations, primarily PG&E and some EID. Once those are in place, they expect that they're going to be getting going on the project in 2020. It's not going to be a quick project. It's going to be rife with delays for travelers on Bass Lake Road, but it will extend the Silver Springs Parkway south to that 25-mile-an-hour curve. That roadway already has on the north part of it bicycle lanes and sidewalks. It will continue all the way to Bass Lake Road, where it will stop. But this will be a massive safety improvement. But the primary goal of this roadway is, it's facilitating the development of the Silver Springs residential project. So this is a real quick look here. Madera Way is down here at the bottom. That curves right here, and the roadway will come through. And this, the changes of this project will extend about 800 feet into Madera Way. Madera Way, they're going to lose a lot of the landscape frontage along the outside of their wall, but they're gaining a right-hand turn lane into their neighborhood, which is something neighbors there have been asking for many years. They already have a left-hand turn lane there. So, but Rich is pretty sure that this will be going to the Board of Supervisors soon, so they can put out a request for bids for contractors. So, are there any questions about the Silver Springs Parkway Southern Extension? Well, good. We're going to move along. The next thing is the Silver Springs residential development. A very old project, and you may have seen it if you travel on Green Valley Road near Silver Springs Parkway at the north end of this project, next to the Pleasant Grove Middle School. They had begun grading and underground work there in the last year. They had come back and they were seeking a 2-year time extension on their subdivision tentative map. I was surprised because they did this 2 years ago and they asked for another 2-year time extension. They could have asked for 6, but they're back again, and this was granted. This is basically just extending the term of their subdivision map so they can get this project built out. It's a long approved project. So there's about 234 houses in it. As I drop through this, you can see generally where it's at. That road extension will come, this is an old map, it'll come all the way straight through to that curve. Where they're working right now is right here in the northern section. Foxmore Lane from inside of Sierra Crossing will connect to that road. And the middle school is right over here. So that's where they're at on this. They were granted the time extension. They have 2 more years on their tentative map. So expect to see more construction continuing there. And I imagine, you know, that's the condition of the economy has a factor in their timelines, but it seems that residential is still going regardless of how dire things may be right now with COVID. So jumping ahead, I'm sorry,
Hey,
unless
John, can I say something on that?
Sure.
It's John Vania. Yeah, the people who live on Foxmore, their whole world is going to change. I hope they know that.
Well, it's been planned for a long time, but yeah, it is significant.
Yeah, because you're going to have a whole lot of school traffic going down through there, so they need to get ready and plan ahead for that, because that's going to happen.
Yeah, and you know, it's unfortunate. That was one of the Green Valley road studies a couple of years ago had determined, you know, hey, what can we do to improve the traffic on Green Valley Road? One of it was the determination that they need to improve the ingress and egress and the traffic flow inside the Pleasant Grove campus and their parking lot. But the first thing they did when they put this traffic signal in at the new Silver Valley Parkway, I'm sorry, at Silver Springs Parkway, is that they eliminated the right hand out of the eastern right hand exit out of that project because the grade changed so much you can't take a car out of it without it bottoming out. So they technically lost the driveway. So yeah, and that is you know, I had 2 kids there. It's a nightmare in the mornings heading both directions, and it's a nightmare in the afternoons heading east because it backs up all the way to Deer Creek to Deer Creek in the back. So yeah, it's going to be tough there, and even when it's done, it's going to change the dynamics of how kids get in and out of that campus. So
all right, thank you.
Well, thanks for pointing it out. So Bass Lake North was next on our update list. It's a 90-home project that's part of the Bass Lake Hills specific plan. It was approved in 2017, and it's right along Sienna Ridge Road, the old Bass Lake Road technically, but Sienna Ridge Road. They too had sought a time extension for their subdivision map. They had to delay getting annexed into EID, which was part of their plan, and LAFCO took a while getting it done. They were annexed in, and this also was approved. They have a 6-year time extension on their subdivision map. So it's a part of phase 2 of the Bass Lake Hills specific plan. There's a question about they determined that maybe they weren't going to be able to provide the total amount of parking spaces at the proposed parking right, which was a condition of approval. That's a separate matter that'll be coming back to the Planning Commission at a future date. So unless there's any questions about Bass Lake North, we could run on to the Bass Lake Road detour. So these photos were a couple weeks old. This road segment right now, right over here, does not exist anymore. The grade has been raised, it's level, consistent with this small section, this temporary section. This is a new Country Club Drive, and this is down at the bottom is a view looking north towards Bass Lake Road. This road segment doesn't exist anymore. So I talked to Richley about this, and the original projection for this detour was it was going to last through mid-August, maybe later, depending on weather and other issues. Rich shared with me that he believes that the detour is going to be done by July. So that was good news. I drive this infrequently since we have no place to go now with COVID, but this is a realignment of Country Club Drive on this photo down here. It's going to take Country Club up Tierra de Dios, which will become Country Club Drive past Holy Trinity. It comes up over the hill, and it comes out roughly where the City Lights Drive is, a gravel road around this alignment. And this is where the detour is right now. When this is done, there'll be a signalized intersection. It'll have left turn lanes. It'll have very long queuing lanes for different turn movements, right, left. And it moves all this traffic from just adjacent to the interchange, which it backs up on Country Club in the mornings, pretty far back, almost to Holy Trinity, and also on obviously on Sundays when Mass is in session. So it's a needed improvement. It's part of the Bass Lake Hills specific plan. They believe they're getting ahead of it right now, that the timetable is a little bit accelerated. Rich believes that the turn signals, everything will be done probably by the end of October, so that the Old Country Club will become a bike lane or a bike route, and that you'll have signals and everything in place right here. So that's where that's at right now. If anybody has any questions on the detour, it's just a little bit of good news that it might be a little shorter than expected. Okay, jumping ahead.
Yeah, John,
Yeah, Joel.
when you're talking about when they were scheduling to have the detour done, there was some interference and I didn't hear what the date was.
Okay, the original schedule was mid-August, August 15th, perhaps a little later. The new updated schedule, as long as things hold steady, is the end of July.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for catching that. I'm moving ahead to Saratoga Retail Phase 2, which has a very long history. We all talked about it at APAC for many years. The original proposal had been for a drive-through Chick-fil-A, a drive-through Habit Burger. That got denied at the Planning Commission a few years ago. They came back with an alternate version with just the Chick-fil-A and another building that did get approved. The residents worked with the developer because they were not satisfied with this project as it was approved. Consequently, the developer agreed to make some changes. Chick-fil-A is out and has been for over a year. They started construction on these buildings. Right now, from what we understand, this building, in building 3 up here in the corner, adjacent to the on-ramp in Eldorado Hills Boulevard at the interchange, this will be a drive-through Starbucks. There's some smaller suite spaces right here. And then I believe the large building is supposed to be a Kelly Moore paint shop. And so if I've missed any of the details on that, but basically if you've driven by the boulevard and the interchange, buildings are up now. This photo is from probably 3 weeks ago. There are buildings framed and sheathed, and they're going full tilt over here. The original estimate for the project, I believe in the Business Journal, it suggested it might be done by July, but I couldn't get confirmation, and nobody would return my phone call. So if you're driving by, people have been asking what's going up there on the corner. Well, that's what it is. Does anybody have any questions or any feedback about this? You guys are too easy. So the next item on our agenda is the Saratoga Way and Wilson Boulevard connections. The extensions have been completed. They were completed in April. This is what it looks like coming from west to east, coming into Eldorado Hills at the Wilson intersection. And that's at the intersection right here. So I've noticed, as I've only gone by it a few times, I noticed that the traffic seems to be increasing, especially as more people are out, as some of the stay-at-home restrictions are being lifted and there's a little more activity going on. I took a couple photos here. I know residents have some questions, and we heard from Rafael Martinez about the timing of the traffic studies that are going on now that this is completed. They're eyeing August and September because the expectation is that's when kids will be back in school. We hope, and we hope everyone's back in school and healthy. But that way you get an accurate forecast of what those traffic flows look like. But we did, a lot of APAC members, a lot of people contacting APAC wanted to know, why there's no traffic controls at Finders or at Arrowhead. The speeds are pretty high right now. And, the study will probably reveal, numbers. We don't know what they will say, but the perception is it doesn't look entirely as safe as we had hoped. And that's from several neighbors, several residents. There are stop signs on the new section in Wilson, and we don't know if there's a traffic study done to justify those. But here's what they look like at Adirondack. There's these two that are on this new road segment, and they're adjacent to the new development. So we don't know how those were justified or how those were warranted. I don't know if, Brooke, if you had anything you wanted to throw in on that. I know you had some conversations and correspondence with DOT Director Martinez.
Yeah, so I can speak to that a little bit. I'm still confused in researching the information that he gave me, but apparently the study that used the built out numbers for the community, completely built out, not just phase 1 or phase 2, led to the justification of those 2 stop signs. And I had asked the specific question of why can't that documentation or those numbers be used to justify the stop signs at Finders and Arrowhead? Because obviously it would be the same cars. They can't magically get to those stop signs without going through one of those intersections. And I don't have an answer to that yet. One of my concerns is at Finders, there literally isn't a crosswalk in any direction. So while we had questions about the stop sign, I was curious why there isn't a crosswalk. And then the speeds, my house is literally right behind, my backyard backs up to Saratoga, right at Finders. So we have been monitoring the speeds, and they are getting really scary because while the picture I don't think does it enough justice, there is a severe grade. So as you're coming on Saratoga going towards El Dorado Hills Boulevard and you pass through Finders, there's a considerable drop, and people slowing down have been unable at times to slow down to make the left-hand turn onto Finders. And you can't see the traffic if they're queued up at Finders as you're coming down Saratoga. So
yeah,
I wasn't involved in the initial process, and I'm wondering if we can see the traffic studies that were done, because I'm curious how they dealt with that intersection.
And I believe the project was it 2014? I'm trying to remember the approvals. So it would be an older bit of information.
So something I proposed, and if it comes across our desk, I know that some doctors bought the parcel of land, which is further down Saratoga, right next to the medical center. Their plan is to build another medical center right next to the new one on Saratoga. And there we could likely connect, at least get a sidewalk and a crosswalk going up to this new community as part of their conditions.
Yeah, I know that we experienced that in the Bass Lake area, specifically with Serrano J6 and J7. You know, there's a segment that would, to make it walkable through all the communities that are adjacent to it, it would not be in front of or contiguous with the Serrano project. And you know, the comeback was that it was, you know, hey, it's off site. It's not a matter that had been considered or, you know, for evaluation. So I know that you've had communications with Director Martinez, and I'm hoping that, you know, he continues to provide feedback. My only observation is that every intersection on Iron Point Road in the city of Folsom, except for that, and I'm blank on the name of that last road, every single one of them has some sort of traffic control. So, you know, our question was a traffic analysis done at every single one of those intersections? Was it consistent with what's done with the Saratoga Estates, where they proposed that, you know, the total build out justified those traffic controls? I don't know if it's a city of Folsom thing, but the only intersection in Folsom on Iron Point that doesn't have that traffic control is where the road ended prior to, you know, the connection to Saratoga. So
right. So the answer that we got back on that, because that was one of the questions I asked, was if you look at the vehicle code, it is permissible right now for the county to put in a stop sign. There's nothing preventing it. It is at the discretion of DOT, and there's an opinion that there would be culpability or liability at the county level if that stop sign wasn't justified by a specific report, traffic study.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with that, putting on my legal hat, but that was the justification. So Folsom may take a different approach based on their liability exposure.
Sure. So The best we can hope for right now is that those studies are conducted in that August, September timeframe, and that some good information comes back, and that, you know, we all understand the conditions and, you know, what can be done or what's not going to be done. So, but I drove it twice, and I noticed that when I was driving, I was getting past, you know, when I was coming up to turn at Wilson, people are flying pretty fast. So hopefully as more traffic hits it, that's a bad thing to say, that'll start to slow things down, but you know, it will be determined, and we'll see what's going on. So if there are no more questions for this, we'll move on. We only have 2 more to go. Here we go. So, hey, Costco, how about that? A lot of people have been mentioning in social media again that, you know, the Costco project's done. It's not going to happen, that they don't want to do it in the county. They want to do it someplace else in the county. I reached out to the basically the real estate team that we had met with in the stakeholder meetings. And I just asked for, hey, can you give us an update? I know that they've been updating the county, but just, you know, what's available for the public to know that's not, you know, inappropriate to share among the public. This is the Costco that, you know, there were 2 proposals. The original proposal in March of 2019 was that Costco would be over here on the sort of the east side of Silver Valley Parkway with their fueling station on the west side. They came back and changed that to everything's on the west side. And this is basically a very limited conceptual drawing of what they're talking about. And part of this facility was that they were going to have an underground parking below grade, which they had not done anyplace else in the United States. That is prohibitively expensive to do. So if they're entertaining doing it, then you can be pretty well assured that, you know, they're very interested in this project. So when I talked to him, he said that, and I'll jump ahead. I think I have it here. So they have entered into a purchase agreement with the EDH 52 property owners at Silver Valley for the western parcel that they discussed with the below grade parking. Costco is solely interested in this site in El Dorado County. They're not looking at any other site. They've studied every other interchange on US 50 in El Dorado County. None of them would be applicable for what their store would generate and, you know, the impacts that would bring. Silver Valley's only Class A intersection that would accommodate them. They're not interested in Placerville, El Dorado, Diamond Springs, or Cameron Park, primarily because, again, the interchange doesn't exist in a capacity that would serve their project, but also because there are 42,000 people in El Dorado Hills and only 10 to 12,000 people in Placerville. I think like 14 to 16 in Cameron Park. They know where their members are, and their hope is that they will drive those new members from the city of Folsom and in the Folsom Ranch project to the south. White Rock Road will drive straight to their project. So they will lessen the impact on their existing store in Folsom, and they will better serve their members in El Dorado County. So the only other thing he did qualify for me was that, you know, they had projected sort of a timeline of what it would take once they got going as far as approvals. And he said, you know, due to the COVID crisis, the way the economy is right now, there's some uncertainty. They're still dedicated to doing this project. Their timelines are a little different because they have to look and see what the economic conditions are like. They also are uncertain where the county's at. You know, they want to make sure everybody's on board, but they intend to pursue this. It just might be a little bit longer. So if anybody has any Costco questions that I can't answer, jump right in.
I have one.
Hey, Joel.
Is this public information?
He allowed me to share this information, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, then moving ahead. The last item on our agenda tonight is the Town Center Apartments in Town Center East. The original projection was that this would be done in December 2020. I reached out, tried to get some confirmation of that, maybe a status update. Nobody wanted to talk to me. It might be because you know, APAC opposed the project, but they're moving along. The parking garage is primarily completed, as you can see here, and this is a photo from the Regal Cinema parking lot. The buildings for the apartments themselves are being constructed. They're going up now. These again are a couple of weeks old, but they're moving along pretty fast. There's a parking garage from Town Center Boulevard. You can see in the background buildings going up. They're moving pretty quickly. They again, had committed to sort of a December project timeline, but without an update, we're not certain that's what they're still looking at. So if there's any questions about this, awesome. Well then, guess what, gang? Here's the last photo, sorry. We've done it. We've done our first virtual meeting. I want to thank everybody for participating. Hopefully we can do this a little smoother next time. Be a little easier driving from this side. Our next meeting is scheduled for July 8th at 7 p.m. I imagine it's going to be virtual unless something's changed. The CSD is not opening up the pavilion for use yet. So we'll do our best to accommodate everybody. And again, we're still looking at a standalone virtual meeting for the Montana de El Dorado project. Mr. Perkins, when we contacted him, he was very eager to engage in that. And so we talked about perhaps next Wednesday, maybe not at 7, maybe at 6. But if his project, if he's willing to go 60 days, we might be able to, maybe we'll push out a little bit further. I'd rather have the information in the hands of residents sooner so that they can, have informed opinions and questions and concerns to submit for the public comments on the draft EIR. So if there are no more questions, I'll throw it to Tim, to John, to Brooke. Anything else?
Yeah, just Tim. John, shout out to you. I mean, you were not only hosting this, you were directing it. You did a great job. You did it more professionally than some of the other Zoom meetings I've been on. So hats off to you, because I know John Rasser and I could not have done it.
Well, I might ask you to do it next time, or do the talking and I'll drive. But
okay.
Yeah, this is a new environment for us, and we just want to make sure that, we missed a bunch of meetings. We want to make sure that residents are still informed and they're part of the process. Okay. And well, with that, I'm going to stop sharing this screen, and then we can see everybody again. And I'll just say thank you, everybody, for participating tonight. As soon as we know what's happening with that standalone Montana de El Dorado meeting, we'll get that out in email, put it on our social media, put it on our website. So with that, I would like to thank everybody and say good evening.
Good night. Thank you.
Good
night. Thanks.
Thanks, John.